Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is part 2, and whereas the last part was a batch of 7, this is a batch of 2. And this is geared up to the fact that they will both be potted in large bark in holey clay pots. Now, when we looked at all the plants to do, this one was borderline on the grounds that it's 2 plants. One had a new growth starting, so I'm just getting this sheath off while I'm talking. It's got to come off anyway, so we'll do it now. The smaller, this is 2 plants in this pot, the smaller plant had a new growth starting but no signs of new roots. The other one didn't have a new growth starting but had new roots coming out of the old growth. Now, this is one of the bonuses of YouTube. You've got a world of people hopefully watching, and they all have their own information that they may have gained by owning the same plant as you've got. Now, somebody said with the purpurata, because I was going to wait on this until I saw more signs of new roots, that the new roots come from the previous growth as the new growths push on. Now, I didn't know that. So that influences my decision on the grounds that this one is the latest growth, not a new growth, that's the last one it did, and that already has started its new roots, so I can see some new roots starting. The smaller piece, which effectively has only got 2 leaves and 2 bulbs with leaves on, does have its new growth starting, but hasn't started its new root system yet, but it will. This is the thing. So these 2 pieces need coming out and sorting out in some nice fresh bark. The reason is this is in old bark, and down in here it's staying wet. It's lost its air, it's compacted, and it's starting to go off. So I want my new roots to go in something good. Now, the other one is a brand new plant. So this will be its first repot, which is a trifle worrying because I've got a horrible feeling what I'm going to find. This one's got a strange name. It's Cattleya type, and it's Varroot Star Trek, not Star Trek as I did once say, Star Trek. And this is starting its new roots on its matured growth. Yeah? So that could mean a new growth is about to start, but I don't know what this is currently potted in. Now, when I bought this came from Spiceotic Plants. I was told, I was pointed at the root system and told that they weren't very good, and they're not. And the reason they're not very good is it's in compacted moss. I don't know, what do you expect? If you import a plant, you can't expect to sell every plant you import immediately. And if it's a Cattleya type and it's in compacted moss, it needs repotting. You know, don't just leave it there for the roots to die, deal with it. Anyway, this moss stinks, it's old, tired to say the least. And down in amongst it are some root tips that are growing. So I'm not quite sure how much of this I'm going to do, because I don't want to damage the few good roots that I've got. Yeah, and there are roots pushing down here. So I'm going to stop this and go and do it under the tap, where I can just ease this moss out under the tap, and that way the roots don't get damaged. So we'll stop that one, and this one, inadvertently, I forgot my tools. I'll be back. Right. Possible need for a knife, not definite, but the one thing I do need to do is get the wire off. The plant is held in with wire, so that's got to come off. And normally it pulls off relatively easy. If it doesn't, then we might need the pliers, but we'll work along the lines that we don't. So far so good, as they say. piece. Two pieces. Label. That's one side, or it'll go out. It'll go out with the trash. Now, why I brought a knife out is to when roots attach to the outside of a holey clay pot, they're normally doomed. But luckily there was only a few. There's also a few coming out the bottom of the pot, so those are liable to be lost as well. They're not attached. And then the idea is that you tip it upside down and see how much bark comes out. And sometimes a lot will come out and let the plant go, and other times it won't, because the roots are on the inside of the pot and they've attached. And that's where the knife blade comes in, to just go round and ease the bark. And I think that a lot of this is not because the roots are attached to the pot, it's because the bark is compacted and jammed in there. But we do have some roots attached over this side. And that is what I was worried about. That is wet and it stinks. Right, there's our two plants. And what have we got here then on this one? This is where the new growth is here. This under here is where the new roots are highly likely to appear. But we do have some roots that aren't too bad. Not many, but some. So it looks like this plant is coming to the point where it is thinking about reproducing a root system. This is what I hate when you get this. This looks like a rotten root, and it is. And yet down the bottom are some live ones, but it's not even attached. It's just a string hanging down. So, where are my scissors? I was going to say, don't say they went out with the last lot of trash, please. So I'm just going to snip these obviously dead ones back here, because they're going to serve no purpose. The only purpose they serve is to allow the new roots to attach to them, which you just don't want. So I'm not going to go mad getting the old bark off. It's going in new bark. These odd little bits won't matter. That'll do. So that'll do for that one. As I said, I've got a new growth coming, and the other thing I wanted to do is, while I've got the plant out, again, I don't know whether this works, but there is a little tiny bit of scale showing on this one down near the base. I mean, most of the sheaths are off, so they haven't got any place to hide. So what I thought I'd do is just use my sprayer on the base of the plant, which currently has hydrogen peroxide in. And I don't know whether it can kill scale or not, but it's sat there doing nothing. And also, when you've got roots that are getting a bit iffy and starting to go, you know, rotten on the base of the plant, this basically cleans up those roots, in as much as if there are any pathogens or anything sitting on them, especially as they've been staying a bit wet, then this gets rid of that. And with any luck, it might actually deck those few scale as well. So that's that one. One down. While we're there, look, you might not be able to see that. In that leaf joint is scale, and the only way you can get them out is with a pointy object, because they go in there and they get a waxy coating over the top of themselves, which means virtually anything that you spray on them won't touch them. You just got to dig them out basically and break that surface. Then, who knows whether that'll work or not. I mean, hydrogen peroxide has a burning effect, you know. In theory, it'll deck them. But it is a bit of a theory. Right, so I've got to go careful with this piece, that's why I'm holding it up in the air, because there is at least one new root on there. But I also want to give this leaf joint a hook. I think this is old stuff in here. Yeah, this is old dead stuff. Don't worry about that then. That one's okay. That one is, again, that's old stuff I think. Oh, I don't know. No, it's old stuff. Right, so that's that. That one hasn't got any, that one hasn't got any. Right, now down to the base of the plant. There's me saying this one hasn't got its new growth starting yet. There it is, it's just bursting out now. So new roots to come on this any minute now basically. So we'll take the sheaths off near the base. That's the hidey place for the scale in the first place. And it'll allow the roots to get straight out into the media and not have to fight their way out. Right. What have we got in the way of roots here? There's a lot more roots on this piece. This was the better piece of the two. Actually got some root activity right at the back of the plant. But we also have huge sections like this of dead roots. So remove those straight away. There are some times when I'm doing Cattleyas into a holey clay pot that I will actually leave some old roots on to give the plant something to anchor, you know, so that I've got something to work with, knowing that they're going to die eventually anyway, but it just gives you something to work with, something to bed in, so that it's come on, get in there. Alright, come in from the other side then. So I got one good root I wanted to maintain there. That will probably do. Most of what's left looks like it will either branch, is already branching, or could start some new roots. So I'll leave the rest, I think. Just feeling around, see if there's any loose bits while I'm there. Loose bits I'll ease off, but if they're attached I won't mess with them. Right, so but this piece here doesn't seem to have any scale at the base. So obviously the last time I treated this actually worked. We do have root activity starting at the base here. So we will try not to mess that up. There's an adult scale. And there's another one. Those just came off, so those were already dead. As I said, I think this whole plant got sprayed not that long ago. The trouble is with the systemics on the Cattleya types is that these leaves are so sturdy and chunky that the spray very rarely gets absorbed. It just doesn't go in. So you're not getting much of the stuff actually into the plant. Well, obviously, if the systemic element of it isn't getting inside the plant, then it can't work. I've always found that systemics on Cattleyas types just are not as good as they are on things like Oncidium types, and the sort of softer leaved types of orchids. Just make sure all the sheaths are off while I'm at it, while I've got it in my hand. Right, so those are our two pieces. They are both going to go back in the same pot. I see no point in separating them, quite honestly. Yeah, I think I'll put them both back in the same pot. In fact, I'll probably pop them up the same as they were, facing in opposite directions. Just gently put that in there because there are some live root tips. And as I said, they're both going to go in holey clay pots. The purpurata is going to go back in the pot it's just come out of. I will go and give it a bit of a scrub. Doesn't really need it. I mean, there's no infections or anything, you know, to worry about. The only thing I do worry about when I pick up a clay pot like that that's had a Cattleya in it and it's damp. It's been so wet at the base of that pot, the pot is like wet. You know, it's in the clay, right in the clay. Now, although that does happen when you water with the holey clay pots, it doesn't stay like that long. And the other thing I need to do is I need another holey clay pot, a small one for this Cattleya. And that means my heap of orchids on the floor down here to be thrown out need to be thrown out and not just left on the floor. And while I'm about to have a tray full of rubbish to go out under the hedge, now is a good time to do that because I need one of the holey clay pots. So yeah, I'll be back. Okay, large bark, not quite so large bark, holey clay pots, wire for anyone who's interested. That is 2mm aluminium bonsai wire, black coated in this case. Long nose pliers. The reason I'm going to use those before anybody says you ought to use normal pliers for wire is that these have got a reach, which means I can lever, which you can't do with the others. I know what I'm doing. And wire cutters, because I certainly can't do that with my teeth. Right, we had a bonus. While I was throwing out all the old stuff, I put my sotoanum to one side to throw out because it refused to grow. And while it's been sitting there, not getting watered and refusing to grow, it's pushed out what I consider to be a reasonable growth. So I've separated off the rubbish of the plant, tried to ensure there's no scale because it was badly infected. This bit looks clean. So far so good, as they say. And I'll just pot that up in a small pot and it might recover. Sotoanum is a smashing Oncidium orchid to have. The fragrance is gorgeous. It's one of the parents for the twinkles, so that's the fragrance sort of stuff. And mine just collapsed because the roots just went. I didn't keep up with the watering and they frazzled in one of the heat waves a while back. Not last year, it was the year before. So this has been ready to be thrown out for some time. I believe it. I may have made that decision when I got here. I may have made it in the old house and brought it round just in case. But I'm going to pop that up anyway. So bonus, we have a new plant. Well, a plant that I've always had, but it's back. Let's put it that way. Right. I've remembered why I had 2 bags of the large bark. The other bag was rescued, as will this be. This is all the old big bark that's come out of those holey clay pots. There's nothing wrong with it. It's still rock hard. But because the plants in it failed, including one that was definitely rotting, it needs sterilising. So that'll go in some boiling water, be allowed to soak for a bit and then dried off. And that's why I had 2 bags full, because part of one of those bags, the smaller one, was rescued. So recovered rock hard bark. Right, so first of all, our little Cattleya has actually cleaned up quite well, and these roots may branch out. They do have some growing tips, so we may get some roots off of this older part of the plant, yeah? But we do have the new roots coming from the latest growth as it's maturing. I'm just wondering, can I get these sheaths off? It's always better while you've got the plant in your hand. than after you've potted it. Now you have to bear in mind some Cattleya sheaths are really well attached to their pseudobulbs, and you can damage the pseudobulbs with sharp nails like what I have got. So if they don't come off easily, they stay there. That's the way I look at it, and I'll try again later when they've softened. Now this has got to be put in the bark carefully, and the bark gently added. And I want to get some pieces in under the plant, which with this size bark I have to place manually. They won't fall through the gaps. So I'm looking for some smaller thin pieces now to tuck between the roots. Otherwise there'll just be an air gap there, which is not the end of the world with a Cattleya type, but it would be nicer if, you know, while I'm there I can deal with it. And then when I get near the top, like now, I'll just find a few more bits, find a few smaller bits to go where those new roots are, including a couple underneath the base of the plant, so that I don't. So in a minute I'm going to pull some wire on this, and that's the wire I should have put on obviously before I put the plant in the pot. That wire will manage. So all I need now is for that to sit still while I get some wire threaded through, or while I get some wire cut to thread through. Now I'm confident that this will only need one piece of wire, which can come in from there, go across the rhizome, miss the new roots and go down, and just hold it on top of that bark I've carefully placed underneath the plant, so I can't pull it down too much. So we've got a hole in the side of the pot here. I'm going to have to hold the plant while I do this. Much easier if you do the wire first, trust me. I just keep forgetting almost every time without fail. Right, now that's got to go, I reckon, about, if I go in front of that one, I'm in danger of, no, it's going to have to go between those two, down through there. So I need to get it through the bulbs that I need it to be, obviously before I try and pull it tight. Now again, there's another hole in the pot just there, which is for once just in the right place. Get my wire to go through like that, and then this is where the long nose pliers come in, because you can now lever like that, because the pliers have got length to them, so you can lever the wire to get it to pull through. This is the point where you stop, make sure your plant's in the right place. Make sure your wire's pulling at an appropriate place on the plant, and you've actually got your plant reasonably tight, which I haven't, but I need to secure this end of the wire first before I start pulling on the other end, otherwise I'll just pull it back through. So we'll secure that end, and then we'll use this end to pull down onto the plant. That's got it. And then as soon as you know you're tight enough, put a kink in it so that it can't pull back through. Trim the end off. Tuck that back down in the pot, and that, under normal circumstances, would be it, except that I just want to give those new roots a bit of help. So what I'm going to do is get some of the other bark, which is a little bit smaller. Make sure I haven't got any manky pieces in here, like that just break up. This has got some softer parts in. Just make sure I got a few nice pieces to just tuck in round where those new roots are. They'll have something to grab hold of a little bit quicker than they would have done otherwise. There's something about Cattleyas, when their roots grab hold of something and attach, they seem to grow better. And as we may well get some roots out the other side of the plant, we'll put a few pieces over that side too. The smaller pieces will hold moisture longer, yeah? So near where the new roots are, it'll stay a little bit more moist. Right, good soak for that, and hopefully those new roots. In 3 to 4 weeks we might see them start to come out the holes. That's the goal, is to get them to grow reasonably quickly. Plant's reasonably secure, that's okay. I won't be using that one. It's a strange pot, that one. It's made of a different material, so although it's a clay pot, it seems odd. And I've found that every plant that I've put in there hasn't done very well and very rarely attaches its roots. So I may not use that one. But this is the pot that the Purpurata came out of. It's the pot that it's going back in. We'll put the wire on first this time, but first of all I've got to work out where the plants are going to go. So we've got 2 large plants here to get in. Now this one, that root is broken. I've been trying to sort of think, shall I cut that one off? Because it's going to be in the way, but it is actually broken at that joint. It's sort of held on by a piece of bark, strangely enough. Right, so these are all the ones that were up against the pot. They were attached. So they are slightly damaged, but we have got root tips. And this is our new growth. I want that pointing towards the middle of the plant. So this bit of plant needs to go sort of there, like that. That'll be fine. So while I'm doing it, I'm looking to see where the holes in the pot are, because I'm obviously going to have to wire this in place firmly. So I can now get a piece of wire to come over this rhizome here and out through there somewhere. So that's where that one's going to go. This one, let's just put that down again. This one, the new growth is just starting. And there's an awful lot of plant here. But these things will only bloom on mature plants. So I'm going to try and keep this plant intact. Now this one has got new roots starting, which are precious, and again I want the new root pointing towards the middle, new growth pointing towards the middle of the plant. I'm going to take some more of these long roots off. They're not active and they will stop me getting this in the pot because they're so long. So I'm just going to take them back a bit. If it starts to branch, at least now it will get into some media. Right, so this piece has got to go there. So that's what we're looking at, like that. Right, so I'm going to need, it's remotely possible I can grab hold of both of these pieces with a single piece of wire. That's what I'm going to attempt to do. It may fail miserably. So we'll have a reasonable piece because it's got to come up over 2 plants. So from there, I'm going to have to go round 2 holes there. The holes in the side of the pot, these ones, they're too high up. Whoops! So I'm going to have to come in through the large holes. So I'll need a little bit more than normal to thread through there. That'll do. Right. So we'll have one piece coming in through there. What we have to do is we have to come out, come back into the hole next to it, and then twist so that the wire's locked into place. Give it a twist. That secures it. I mean, you're only going to pull against a plant, so it's, you know, it's not a big deal. It doesn't have to be strong enough to hold a car or anything. It's just, you know, just in place. That'll do. And then you've now got to get the plants in, and then thread this over the top, and that one's going to go in this hole here, and that might have to come up over the top because otherwise it's going to have to go down too far. So now what we're up to is getting the bark in place underneath the plant without damaging the new growth or the new roots, so that when I pull on the wire it pulls the plant down onto the media. Oh, that long root's just broken. It's just as well come off. Sort of soggy anyway. I was just trying to hope that it might branch. Right, so that one's got to go there so that the wire will pull over. So the leaves are getting tangled up now. So that one's got to go there. So the wire comes over that rhizome, and that one's going to go. There's my new growth again. It's that way round. That one's going to go there, and I think the wire will come over the top of that quite nicely. So first of all, we get some some bark under this piece. Yeah, because I'm going to have to do this as two separate pieces. So we need to get the bark under this piece, because I won't be able to get out these spaces in a minute. Not once I pull the plant down. We need enough under there that when I pull on the wire, the plant is going to pull down onto bark and not into open space, because if it pulls down onto open space it will go into that open space and then it will be too low in the pot and the wire won't grab anything. So that's that one. Now let's have a look at this one, the awkward one. Need three hands here. I've always said the evolutionary process for orchid growers should be that they get a third hand. Would be incredibly useful. Making sure I've got bark underneath the rhizome so that when I pull I'm biting on something. Preferably not knocking the new bits of roots off. I always say when you're doing this sort of thing, a little bit of root damage is almost inevitable, but you can work as best you can to avoid it. Right, now that bit's got to come over there, so that's round that leaf, behind that leaf, that's the little piece done, and then the big piece, it's going to have to go around that huge leaf there to get behind this pseudo bulb to be able to pull down. No, I'm going to go in front of that leaf. I'm going to go there. As I said, I'm hoping to get away with one piece again. Might have to put a second piece on. It should pull okay, and I can still see a hole to push the wire through, which is a bonus. Right, now, how good are we? This piece is lifted up, but that's only because the wire was loose. What we can do now is use the pliers to pull that wire across that plant. And pull it down. And this piece comes up over there. It's a good job you only do this once. I mean, this is a fiddly job, but at the end of the day you do it once at repotting time, and then with this bark, this plant can stay in here for donkeys. You know, it really can stay in here an awful long time now. The wire's got a kink in it. That makes pulling it through a little bit more difficult, but it'll come through in the end. tight, and so's that. Oh goody. Right, so last little bit of tension, and put the kink in. Now the only thing I've got, I do have a problem here because that's nowhere near tight enough. It's going to have a second piece. Okay, so be it. So make adjustments as you go along. I'm wondering whether if I just move some bark out of the way and try and use this piece of wire to actually pull that down. Yes, I think I might need a piece around the back end here. But anyway, that piece is doing what it was designed to do. I'm just going to pull it a bit tighter if I can. I might get away with this, you know, because we've got new roots coming out. They're going to bind in. I might just leave it and just go careful with it while these roots are settling in. Right, now the same as I did before, I'm going to put some of the smaller bark in around the area where the new roots are likely to be. So I'll just hold a little bit of extra moisture there. Ugh. Right, how are we doing? We've got one of these new roots is actually going to come out over the pot, but if I try and bend that back in, it'll snap. So I'd rather it attached to the pot. As I said, this plant's probably going to stay in there quite a few years now. Until it climbs out of the pot, probably. At which point you have to sort of think, are these aerial roots a big deal or not? And if they're not a big deal and they're attaching to the outside of the pot, then just let it grow like that if that's what it wants to do. Right, so areas where the new roots are going to be have got slightly smaller gaps in the bark, so they should attach quite quickly. The two bits of plant are reasonably secure, I'm happy. Right, so both of those now need a good soak, which in turn gives them a good rinse. So, that's the two fiddliest, because everything else just goes in the pot and the media holds it in place. But when you're using large bark like this in holey clay pots, basically the plant is not secure. You know, if you let go of the plant, it will just flop over and flick the bark out. So you have to do extra work to get these to sort of work. Right, that's that one. That, quite honestly, is the hard one done. Everything from now on is downhill, i.e. it gets easier and easier. So that was part 2 and a batch of 2.